Hello, everybody. Tracy, Mrs. JDog Flanagan with you here today. I'm the co-founder and senior vice president at JDog Brands. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tactical Treasures podcast, sponsored by the JDog Foundation. Our podcast gives veterans, mil spouses, active military members, military family members, and patriotic supporters a voice in the veteran space to speak about their service, how they're affecting their communities post-service, and they share with me a tactical treasure that has shaped their journey in their military career, business, or life. Today, I am so excited to have with me Riley Tejcek, who is an active duty Marine Corps captain, having joined after receiving her degree in political science from George Washington University, where she earned a 4-year athletic scholarship to play in Division I college softball. She is currently a member of Team USA Bobsled, where she is the pilot, the first female Marine bobsledder making a run for the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy. Riley has won 2 bronze medals in the North American Cup in her first ever international competition and has since competed and placed in back-to-back world championships. She balances her active duty status with being an author, volunteering at her church, and training to become an Olympian. Riley currently has over 20 medals from 2021 to current, and as of 2024 has a world ranking of 22. Riley's other accomplishments include being a Family Feud participant in 2024. In 2023, she was crowned Ms. Military and was the Lingo Game show winner, and in 2019, the president of Fellowship Christian Athletes. On social media, such as Instagram, Riley has a following of over 88,000 people. Some of her videos have over 2 million views, and her reach on photos has extended to 320,000 people. She has received several awards, including the 2021 Female Marine Athlete of the Year. Wow. Welcome, Riley.
Thank you for
Um,
that introduction.
I just want to say it is such an amazing honor to have you on Tactical Treasures, and it's so lovely to meet you. And I would just like to say thank you for your service to our country, ma'am. And do you ever sleep? I just want to ask you that question because
I
apparently, according to this bio, I don't know if you do.
I have neglected sleep in the early stages of a lot of these things, and I've come to realize as I get older, I just turned 28. I cannot neglect sleep anymore, so I have to shift a little bit. But I'm like an 8 hours girl now, like to do
Yeah,
all of these things and to be present. I need my 8 hours, but I used to
yeah.
deny myself, so I've gotten better.
I, yeah, I know. When I was young, I could function on 5 hours sleep. Now, 5 hours of sleep, I'm a zombie. You are not getting all of me.
Yeah.
So I get you there. I get you there. So, oh my gosh, so much to talk about. But what I would first like to know is what inspired you to join the Marine Corps?
I love this question. I think everyone's route to the military is very different, but a lot of people come from some kind of family background history of the military. I really didn't have that. And I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is somewhere where there's not really any active military bases. So there's not a whole lot of military presence. So when I was growing up, I never saw a female in the service, let alone the Marine
Oh,
Corps,
wow.
of what I think of as like the bad boys club, or like, the Marines, the
Right.
men, the dress blues. And so I never thought I wanted to be a Marine growing up because I never saw it, which is why I'm
Mm,
so actively showing people like you can be a long blonde hair woman and be feminine and be a Marine. Like it can happen, people.
yeah.
So what really led and inspired me to do all this was my faith in the Lord. And so I really felt like as I continued to grow with God and realize who I was, when you have a calling that you feel kind of comes on and an idea spurs in your head and then you get butterflies about it, you kind of have to follow along with it. And that's really what happened to me in college. I was a Division I softball athlete. I got onto college campus in Washington, D.C. at George Washington. And when I met a Marine recruiter, it was like the puzzle piece that I was looking for. That I couldn't imagine living a life of service, of giving back to my community, being a servant leader, and doing something that not a lot of women at the time were doing. It actually was a very easy sell for me, and ever since that day in 2015, I've never looked back, and it's been an incredible 10-year ride thus far.
Oh, wow. That's an amazing story. I love that. I love your inspiration. Um, yeah, when you have a calling, you have a calling. And, God just wants us to step out in faith, right?
Mhm.
And then he'll take care of the rest. So
Yeah.
that's an awesome story. So, my next question, so since you're still active,
Mm.
do you have a positive takeaway, from your service so far?
I've had so many. I am active duty still, so I'm going on 6 years of active duty. I did, obviously in college, do officer candidate school and that sort of thing. But I actually just got back from a 6 month deployment, which I know you know that.
Yes.
May to November, I was deployed in Baghdad, Iraq, and I was filling a role of an operations officer. I replaced a lieutenant colonel as a captain, and that was the highlight of my military career so far. Not because it was easy, not because it was the most rewarding initial experience, but because it was real life working with 26 other nations side by side, right? Promoting peace in a region where there wants to be a lot of destruction, but being able to challenge myself as a Marine, being in a job that I've never done, living in a country I've never been, right? Yeah, that first deployment, and looking at it, it was challenging in a lot of ways, but extremely rewarding. And that has been so far, I think, one of the highlights of my military career was being able to make life impactful decisions on a day-to-day basis and then interact with people from all over the world while doing it. I think that was such a gift to be in a joint environment.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. What an experience. So, I want to shift a little bit
Mm.
because now you are the pilot of the bobsled team USA, which I think is just so awesome. Um, so how did that come about?
The
I
million
would love
dollar
to know.
question. Yeah, like, wait, hold on. You said you played softball, Winter,
I know.
Indiana, DC. So, yes, all of those questions, yes, I had them as well. Bobsled, just like military, was not on my mind until college. I played college softball at George Washington, which I had previously mentioned, and we had one jersey retired. So you better know that one jersey that's retired from, your school on the softball team. And that happened to
Right.
be of a woman named Alana Myers Taylor. And Alana Myers Taylor, to this day, is now my teammate, but still actively competing for Team USA bobsled. She's gone to 5 Olympic Games, is the most
Oh, wow.
decorated Black female athlete in all winter sports. She's incredible. And
Wow.
after she won a silver in 2018, she came to my university. We presented her an award, obviously, and I got to speak on behalf of the softball team to her. And I was just blown away by her. Obviously her achievements, but more so what she said bobsled was about. It was not for the weak, but it's this big adrenaline, rush. But you're going 80 to 90 miles an hour down these ice slopes, and all the extremes of temperatures and fighting through it and all the things. I'm just sitting there like with my mouth open, like just like, tell me more, tell me more. And it was in that moment that obviously I started following along, because when you have met someone who's an Olympian, you're like, you're really cool. I now know you. I want to follow on to what you're doing. So much so that I tapped the teammate next to me and was like, in another life, I'd be a bobsledder. Swear. And at that
Oh, my
at that
gosh.
time, it wasn't God's timing yet, but that seed was planted. And so I was following bobsled, and then graduated college, went to the basic school for the Marine Corps, went to logistics school for the Marine Corps, got stationed in Pendleton. So all of that took another almost like 2 years. And then it's COVID. So I get to California, it's June of 2020, and
Oh,
everything's
gosh.
locked down.
Yeah.
And then not only am I dealing with that, but like all Americans and people all over the world were, I was like, I just accomplished every single goal I've ever had set for me. Finish through college, get into the Marine Corps, get the job you wanted, get this duty station. And now I woke up and I was like, what is my why? Like, what is my motivation? Like, I just achieved my goals. So, like, what next? And I was trying to answer that question. And then as an athlete, I was a little bit frustrated as a woman. I'm like, I'm 22 years
Sure.
old. I I'm just really learning how to be fit and mentally tough and all this kinds of stuff. But you're telling me my sports career is over. And I just kind of felt cheated. So I don't know, in a world where people were closing down opportunities, I decided I'm going to make something out of it. And I saw, because I was following along, that bobsled was having tryouts, but online instead of in person, because I wouldn't have been able to travel. And so it gave me something to train for, honestly. I was like, let me just train to become what I would think of a bobsledder would do and see if I can get an invite out. And next thing you know, I get an invite out. My command was really supportive. They're like, yep, we'll let you go for 2 weeks because, right, COVID, we had to kind of learn how to work remotely when people
Right.
were in Ramadan, or excuse me, we're in restriction of movement, ROM, for 14 days. So it actually worked out really well. I ended up going. I ended up being successful, and then that led to another invite, which I was supported on and being successful. And the next thing you know, from 2020 up down until present, I'm literally at the Olympic Training Center, about to race in 2 days, and have competed in, you know, like you said in the bio, two world championships. I've had multiple medals and represented my country all across the world, and doing it while being active duty, which is not easy by any means. So then I'm sure there's a lot of questions of like, well, how? And I know we'll probably get into that a bit, but um, it has been the most rewarding process, but one of the most challenging things I've ever done. But I'm excited to continue this ride and see if I have what it takes to make 2026 games and be the first female Marine to do so.
Wow, that's amazing. What an incredible journey. So, I have to ask you though, how do you try out online to be a
Yeah, no,
bobsledder?
great
I
question.
don't,
It's more so like a combine. So like the NFL runs a combine and they're looking at just like basic strength and speed. So you run a 40, you do a certain amount of like power cleans or bench press or lifts or broad jumps, that kind of stuff. So essentially
okay,
it was
got
more of
it.
a combine than a tryout, but overall assessment of athletic ability. And so from there, they're like, do you have the standard baselines of what it means to be an athlete to even be considered to do a sport like this?
Right, right. And then in 2021, you were the athlete of the year for Marine.
Yeah.
Like that's amazing.
Yeah, that was awesome. It was one of those things where someone would send it to me. They're like, "Hey, you know, you're doing incredible things as an athlete. You know, winning some medals and traveling the world." And they're like, "I think you should put in for this." And so I did, and I was granted it, which was a huge accomplishment. You know, one of the best rewards that I've gotten because I was able to show Marines what are possible and bring a lot of
Right.
motivation to my command and the people that believed in me. And this was an award just for me. It was an award for all of the Marines that stood behind me for that time in my bobsled career.
Viewers and listeners, I would like to introduce you to the JDog Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the prevention of veteran suicide and the healing of veterans' mental health. 100% of all proceeds received by the JDog Foundation goes directly to several foundations focused on the mission of saving veterans' lives. Each partner is hand-selected by our executive director, Jerry Flanagan, with input from the assistant director, Tracy Flanagan, and the JDog Foundation board members. Our foundation's motto: saving lives, one veteran at a time. Go to jdogfoundation.org to take a look at everything that we're doing there and the organizations that we're partnered with. You can also donate, and there's also a support line if you're in need of help. Thanks. Check us out, jdogfoundation.org. Wow, that's amazing. You're doing
Mm-hmm.
fundraising, right? So I understand in previous conversations that, the plight of the bobsled team, it's not funded by the US government. And so, and when you think about it, I mean, you're not only transporting yourself, but you're transporting all this
Yeah.
equipment. And I can't even imagine how you begin to do that. Um, so I know that you're kind of working on fundraising. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, Tracy, this is something I love just enlightening people about because majority of Americans have no idea. And it's just good to know when you're watching the games or you see athletes. So when I say professional athlete in your head, you know, you might be thinking of NFL, um, MLB, NHL, hockey, like all stuff, right? And athletes that are making and signing $1 million contracts, right? Like they're no shy of
Right.
money. You
Yeah.
know, professional sports has also been like for men and women like also like a fashion show, right? Like who can wear like the best, I think of Caitlin Clark and all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, all these things, right? So you think money. When you think of Team USA athletes and Olympic level athletes, there is no money. And the reason why I say that, to your point, is because we're not government funded. So a lot of the other nations that we compete against, their government funds for their Olympic dreams and goals and aspirations. And so people say, well, why is the US not like that? Because that would mean more taxes, and no one likes taxes. So I'll rule that out there. So what that means is generally we have a limited amount of budget. And bobsled is a really awesome sport that a lot of people like, but most people have never seen in real life, which means we're not generating that revenue from competing like people would buy tickets to go to the football game. So when you're talking about a bobsled, it's 400 pounds. Okay, it's no
Oh my
small
gosh.
thing.
Wow. Yeah.
She's a tank, and I have two of them. And because I have my monobob, I have my two woman. To your point, not only am I transporting myself and my teammates, I'm transporting those sleds, all my equipment, toolbox, the blades that go on them that are 50 pounds, all of these things. And then, oh, by the way, I'm going to some of the nicest places in the world. St. Moritz, Switzerland, Eagles, Austria, places in Germany, Whistler, Canada, Park City, Utah. Where people pay all these big money to go and ski and stuff. And then we have to do that for bobsled. So for me personally, a lot of USA athletes live under the poverty line. For me, I have a full-time job because I couldn't afford to do this on my own. And so a lot of our finances come out of our own pocket. And while I have like incredible sponsors, going to give them just a quick shout out, KRT, Incrediwear, GovX, and CNC, that have like believed in me, veteran owned companies that have stand behind me and supported me in this endeavor, it doesn't mean that it doesn't come out of my own military paycheck, which again, I'm fine with. But I don't do bobsled because I'm going to get famous or I'm going to make money. I actually lose money. People are like, bobsled, what? I walk on the street. They're not like, you're the
Right.
bobsledder, unless I have like my Team USA bobsled stuff. And then I get the question, are you a bobsledder? And then it's, oh, have you seen Cool Runnings? And I'm like, yeah, but beyond the point. So all this to say, to like wrap up your question, there's a lot that our athletes do to try to get as noticed as possible. Social media has been a great gift, but also beyond podcasts and just letting people know, yeah, no, this comes out of the athlete's pocket. And not only do we do that, we transport the sleds, we do the mechanic work, we're driving cross country to each and every place. And so when people kind of see the bigger picture, when you are able to watch what the athletes do, it makes it 10 times more respectable, in my opinion. So when any of you guys turn on the Olympics in 2026, in a year, 13 months from now, every single one of those athletes, about, I think it was like 80% of us live under the poverty line through our sport. And so when you're doing all of that and you don't get, the glory and the fame, you do it because you love it. I'm just hoping that I can educate people on that, not only to see if people can help, but also to give the proper admiration to these athletes and be like, wow, and you're doing all of this with limited resources. And I think it makes it more enjoyable to watch and to be a part of and follow those stories more closely.
Right, right. And so you've done a lot. So you were crowned Miss Military,
Mm-hmm.
The Lingo Game Show winner, and so much stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
is that part of kind of your branding to get your name out there and get noticed and hopefully, help with your funding?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I am not someone who likes asking for money. I'm a Marine. I'm a hard worker. You find out a way to make it work. So immediately, I studied political science. I was not marketing. I was not any of this stuff. I didn't even have social media for part of college because I was like, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And what I started to realize is I'm like, okay, I have to get my story out here. And so for a money point, I'm like, okay, I can either ask people for money or I can apply for a game show and try to win money. I'm like, well, I'm an athlete, I'm competitive. Like this option sounds like a whole lot better for me. And so going on Lingo or, going on Family Feud, like this kind of stuff was like possibilities for me to earn it and not have to like ask or, do any of this kind of stuff. Plus, I mean, I am probably one of the most competitive people you'll ever meet in your life. So if you open any kind of competition to include like the game of Uno, even without a prize, just the dignity of winning, like I'm in the front line, like front of the line being like, let's freaking go. I want to play.
Oh,
So
I love it.
yeah, and then it kind of transformed. And I know we talked about it. So then I'm like, okay, well, what are other ways that I can find revenue? And part of that is not the reason why, but looking back on it, helps of why I wrote a children's book. And so I wrote my children's book. It's called If You Can Dream It, Be It. And it's kind of like this conversation. And like I already talked about, I never saw a female Marine, therefore I never thought that I could do it. I never saw a female Marine and a professional athlete, so I didn't think it was possible. I never saw a female Marine, professional athlete, author, pageant winner, game show, all this kind of stuff, because I never saw it. And so I was thinking when I kept talking on these podcasts, I was like, I would really like my story to hit to children, because if they can
Right.
see it at a young age, then they know that's possible and feasible to be it. And so that was my whole motivation behind writing the book, to create impact. But on the same time, it makes it more fun of saying like, hey, don't just give me money. Hey, like, why don't you buy my book maybe for like your cousin or your daughter or your granddaughter or something like that. And now looking at it, I mean, it's not like I'm going to become a millionaire off of my book, but it's like, then I can create impact. I can have a revenue source, and I get to use my story and my sport to hopefully inspire other people to go live their dreams like I'm currently living mine. So all that to say, I try to be creative. I've tried to find other ways and avenues, and I'm really proud of, honestly, of what I've been able to come thus far. But it is by the grace of God and all the people that sit behind me and my tribe and support system that has helped me pursue all of these passions.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that story. And you know what? I mean, when you think about it, I mean, the fact that you wrote a children's book, that is an incredible way to inspire young females, young girls who can dream. and
Mhm.
and I mean, what you've accomplished at age 28 is really spectacular. And the story needs to be told, I think. And I think it's just can be so inspiring. So that's really awesome. You also have challenge coins too, right?
Yes, I love that you said that. So we're talking military here, right? People know the
Yeah.
history behind challenge coins and how that started. And I had a friend of mine who owns a company make one for me, and it was just kind of his own thing. He's like, "Hey, I made something for you to give out to people when you meet them in the Marines because you're doing such a good job. This was on me." And I posted about it on Instagram. I'm like, "Look how cool this is!" Right? Like, it was
Hmm.
awesome, and he's an incredible designer. And then all of a sudden, I started getting people messaging me that are like, "Well, I want one. Well, I want one." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." All of a sudden, I'm like, "Wait a minute, I only had 20. Like, I can't keep up." And so I spoke with him, and I was like, "Hey, I have an idea." I was like, "What if we made this kind of like a fundraiser? Like, yes, obviously I'll have some that like I give out and I've given it to a Marine. Well, I wasn't a Marine yet, but going to boot camp. And he was like
Hmm.
like standout, doing really well. I gave him my coin. I said, I can't wait to shake your hand one day as a Marine. This is a token for me. Like, keep going, right? Like, those are like the gifts that I want to be able to like impact and
Right.
give. But then there's people that are like, yeah, we want to support you. And again, it's easier when you get something in return. Like, hey, that coin
Hmm.
is something that people put in their collection. Like, you specifically have spoken to me, or somehow got it. But now you're also supporting my journey. So again, how can I not just be like, hey, can you help give me money? It's like, hey, actually, you can support me. You can buy my $20 challenge coin, and you can, like, that money helps me continue to compete. And it's cool. You're a part of my journey. Every single medal that I won, everything, like, you're like, yeah, like, I helped Riley get there. So I just think it's one of those cool things for like the military community. Again, I try to be creative as possible. I don't know if you can tell. It's like, wait, it's kind of like a spider web. Like, my head just goes to like different things. Um, yeah, I guess I don't know when I sleep, but I do like to give people options and do something for me. And again, impact.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. I love the fact that the Marine Corps supports,
Mhm.
you competing. How do you? I would just like to ask how that gets worked out,
Yeah.
because I think that's a really, because when you're active, I, your life is kind of not really your own, right? So how does that get worked out?
Anyone who served in the military knows, yeah, your life is not your own. You swear an oath, and you know the commitment that you're making, but you know that your primary job is the Marine Corps. And I will reiterate that 10 times over. My number one priority, my job 24/7 is as a Marine. I was a Marine before I became a bobsledder, so that is my primary focus. What I was able to do in the environment of COVID is find a way to have flexibility. And I think that there's a path forward for athletes because there's athletes in the Army and the Air Force that do this full time. And then the all Marine team has Marine teams that go out and compete for short amounts of time. So in my head, I'm again trying to be innovative of how can I do this not for me, but for all the athletes behind me. And so I've been able to find a way to balance per the Leave and Liberty order. It talks about being able to do Olympic level events, and all the events that I am doing are Olympic level events or qualifications or Olympic sanctioned events, right? Getting there and getting to these things. Um, and I was able to work with my command. So nothing that I did was because of me. It's all because of my leadership that was like, Riley, we believe in you. We think this is a positive story for the Marine Corps. We know with you being gone, we might be at a loss, but we believe the impact that you are going to do will pay the gain tenfold over time. And they believed in me. And
That's awesome.
when someone tells you that they believe in you, especially people you admire and look up to, what you're able to do with that is such a treasure.
Sure.
And so I was able to create something out of that. And then, well, I believe in you and I believe in you. And so what it looks like is truly, I'll never be gone more than 30 days, which is pretty interesting in a competition schedule because the rest of my teammates are. And I will literally be in Europe taking calls, have my work laptop, it's right next to me, working as much as I can, emails, calls, being plugged in with the Marines. I'm just not physically present. And then I've been blessed at the Marine Corps when I've initiated and talked to them about, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. They've been able to say, hey, well, then we can give you a billet that maybe isn't as active. You can have maybe this B billet for a little bit. That's not as demanding. It's still, all these things. And we're going to expect you to still hold the standard of the Marine Corps. You're going to be graded and judged as if you were here in person. But we'll allow you to do that and compete. You just can't be gone more than 30 days. Obviously, you owe us some stuff back. And I was like, done. That's a deal. And so everything I've tried to do is highlight the Marine Corps, say how great they are, how my leadership is, because they are. But then I'm also trying to navigate that way forward. So I, for example, competed in Utah last week. I won 4 bronze medals. It was awesome. I flew.
Congratulations.
I flew all day Tuesday from Utah to get back to DC, got in at 7 p.m., showed up for work the next day, worked the whole week, and then came out here to Lake Placid, New York for more competition. And then I'm going to go back, and I decided, hey, I need to go back. My balance scales aren't right. I'm going to take 3 weeks off bobsled, focus and hone in on work, and then I have to go back to bobsled for Olympic team trials. Or, for example, like the story I just said, hey, I'm going to deploy May to November, miss a bunch of my training for bobsled, be in 100-degree temperature in the middle of Iraq, right? Removed from my teammates, miss the first parts of my mandatory season to be able to fulfill my job. So truly, it's a give and take. It's how can I work with my leadership to make sure I'm an asset to the Marine Corps, not only as a logistics officer to my Marines and in my job and my billet, but also as a representation of the Marine Corps to the public, to everybody, of a good news story to inspire women and to pave a path forward for future incredible athletes to do amazing things. So there are no more firsts. It's just a continuation cycle of amazing talent that can stay into the military and then accomplish their dreams and do great things.
That's amazing. I love it. Yeah, I mean, visibility is huge. I mean, for you, and I mean, I think for the Marine Corps, like you said, I think it's a win-win.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. So, this has been an awesome discussion, but it's called Tactical Treasures.
It is.
So, we've come to the time, Riley, where I have to ask you, what is your tactical treasure? What has helped you in your journey that you would like to share with me today?
When I first went to officer candidate school, I learned a very hard lesson at the age of 18 that has been my tactical treasure forever. And it sounds simple, but it's something that I had to realize at a young age, and I think a lot of people do too. It's not about you, it's about the people beside you. And once I was able to figure that out, it wasn't about me as the officer leading. It was about the men and women that are sitting right next to me, that are doing the same things, that are getting up, that are working just as hard. And I need to be as squared away as possible. Not for me to be the best and get scored and get the prizes and awards and recognition, but to be able to take care of them because they deserve it. And if I'm not firing on all cylinders, how in the heck am I going to be able to give my extra time to these people? And so when I learned that, it's changed my whole perspective, tactically, professionally, but more importantly, like as a Marine. It's like it's about the Marines. It's not about me. And how can I use the skills that I've had or the experiences I had to benefit the people around me to bring them up? And it's just the classic word of selflessness, but it's one where you look back on and you're like, yeah, all these things, I'm not doing it for me. I'm not doing it for my own pride. I'm not doing it. I'm doing it so I can take care of the people beside me and give them a better life because they deserve it. And that's something that I've hung on to for so long. I remember the story that brought me to that point. But I also, more than anything, have used that treasure as I've continued on to my career as a Marine and as a captain to make sure that I'm serving the people next to me. But more importantly, I'm benefiting their lives to make sure that they leave the service as better people than we found them. And I can only do that if I'm allowing myself the ability to look outward because inwardly I'm at a good place.
That's great. I love that tactical treasure. That's amazing, very inspiring. And you know what? I it is about the people around you. I think if you look at your life like that, no matter what position you're in, whether you're, in the armed forces or whether you're a mother or a wife or whatever, or, you're a boss. It is about the people around you. How can you, you know, you lead by serving
Mm-hmm.
them. Like I love that saying. And our Lord did
Mm-hmm.
that, right? He was a servant and he led by serving people. And I think that's very inspiring tactical treasure, and I love it. That's awesome. Um, so, my next question. You have accomplished so much in your
Mm-hmm.
young life. I mean, it's just amazing. I can't believe you're 28 years old. You're just have done amazing things. Um, so, I think I already know the answer to this question, but I would love to hear you talk about it. What do you attribute this to? Any advice for fellow women service members?
Yeah, my answer that's going to come out of my mouth, and I'll scream it from the top of my lungs, is I attribute it all to the Lord, my Savior, Jesus Christ. A lot of people say that,
Hmm.
and I understand that. I know not a lot of people live that, and I fall short
Yeah.
of His glory and being the Christian that I want to be. But the only reason why I've had these things and I've gotten here is because of the Lord. But what I want to share with that is it didn't mean that it was always like that on my journey. I grew up in a Catholic family, didn't have a relationship with Christ, went to college, was trying to figure out who I was as a young woman. And it wasn't until my junior year where I re-engaged in my relationship with the Lord and I became a devout Christian and I was in fellowship with Christian athletes and all this stuff. But then since then, it does not mean that my life's been easy. And even though we're talking about all these amazing
Right.
things, we're not talking about the failures, and there's been 10 times more failures than there has been successes. And
Hmm.
what has gotten me through and keeps me on track in my purpose is knowing that the Lord has given me this testimony and He has called me to be put on this earth to lead as an example of what Jesus would look like. And again, I fail at that daily, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to strive for that and strive for that excellence and have that discipline that the Marine Corps teaches you, but the discipline to be that Christian who loves on people and who speaks truth and who speaks light and uplifts people and serves people. And my biggest advice for women, and again, I don't really prep these questions. I kind of, as they come and what season I'm in life, women, other women are not your competition. And I'll say that again. The other women around you are not your competition. And there are so few women in the military that sometimes it feels like it's you versus them because there's only so few and you want to hold the standard and you're like, well, I'm better than them or I'm not, I'm different than them or whatever the case may be. And I've seen this more than anything is the women go at each other when I'm like, those are your allies. Those are people who are going through the exact same things that you are doing, struggling, all this kind of stuff. Why are you breaking them down instead of building them up and becoming, a sisterhood together? And some of my best friends to this day are the people that I went through officer candidate school with. My very, very best friend. Her and I have been through every single step of the Marine Corps together. But it would have been easy for us to like hate each other because we're both like big, strong, alpha women, and we could have, collided with each other. But instead, I was like, dude, you're awesome. And she's like, well, you're awesome. I'm like, well, heck yeah, let's support each other. And like, I'm going to keep telling you that you're awesome when you don't feel like it. You're going to tell me that I am. And then we're going to win together. And so that's just something I've seen in women in sport and women in the military, women everywhere. It's not a competition against other women. I think there are times when you need to step back and be like, wow, we have a lot more common than I think. And I can join forces. Or at the very least, you walk down the street, you see someone that like has a really nice dress or looks pretty that day. Just tell them that they look nice. It's free. It takes no time. Your mind was already thinking it. You're not doing it for any transactional reason. And the amount of times that I've done that to somebody, just because I thought it, they're like, that just really made my day. Like, I really need that. I'm struggling, yada, 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 yada. Fill the blank. So to wrap this up, because I can talk about this all day long. Women are not your competition in the military. Join forces together, uplift each other, but also like spread love, joy, and kindness. If you feel it, give it. It's free and it makes a really big difference in a lot of people's lives. And you never know what people are going through. So show kindness, and kindness majority of the time is going to be returned back to you. But also it's a domino effect, and it can carry on for generations and all over the world if you can initiate that spark of it.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. Great advice. Um, you never know, how you can affect another person just by a smile, a kind word. And oh, we're all fallen people. Thank God for His grace and mercy, right? We get up every day, put our feet on the floor, and try to just do the best we can, and know that, with His help, we're going to get through it and we're
Yeah.
going to do it. But um, this has just been amazing, Riley. Can you? I would love to know where people can find and connect with you, and where can they find some more information on how to support you? Like I think you have a GoFundMe page. Can you just do a couple shout outs
Yeah,
to that?
absolutely. So you can find me on social media. On Instagram, I have one account, Riley.Tejcek, so my name, and on LinkedIn. Any other sites, unfortunately, they are fake people. They are not me. If you do reply or message to me, I reply to everything as long as it's as long as it's appropriate, not inappropriate, within a certain amount of time. So
Right.
please reach out to me there. If you are looking to support in any way, the number one thing I can ask you to do is pray. It's easy, it's free,
Mm-hmm.
and praying for safety and God's God's hand in this crazy, amazing adventure bobsled is awesome too financially. I do have a GoFundMe link. I also have a 501c3 that I work with. All these kinds of things. So if that's something you're interested in, please reach out and let me know. And then also I have my challenge coin, my book, and then I also have promo codes, that I get a kickback for all the sponsors and stuff that I work with. So anything like that, like I said, prayers are also something that I like highly appreciate and encourage, or something simple as follow, like, engage with social media, share, all that kind of stuff, right? The more people that I can get to, the more impact we can have together. So yeah, but I always respond, so just send me a message and I'll get back to you.
That's great. And just real quickly, where can people purchase your
Yes.
book? Where
So
is
it's
that?
still on pre-sale. It will actually come out full March 4th, and it's going to be, I've been
Oh,
told,
wow.
in
Okay.
Amazon and other places. But for right now, I'll make sure that we have a link here that you can click on or something, and it's on the publisher's website, In Game Press. You can purchase it on pre-sale right now up until March 4th. Then my goal, I'm just gonna say it, is to get into like a Barnes and Noble or big time stuff so people can actually, go in a bookstore and buy it. But we'll see what the good Lord has planned for that.
That's amazing. Riley, I'm so glad we finally got to do this. Oh, this has been trying to be done since October of last year. And unfortunately, we had Wi-Fi problems, but I am just so glad that we finally got to talk. And this has just been amazing. It's been amazing getting to know you. And yes, prayers to you and your team. And I just wish you the best in your
Thank you,
journey.
Tracy.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Hello, viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Tactical Treasures Podcast. We just finished up an amazing conversation with Riley Tejcek, who is an active duty Marine Corps captain. She is currently a member of Team USA Bobsled, where she is the pilot. She is also the first female Marine bobsledder making a run for the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy. Unlike most other countries around the world, bobsled is not funded by the United States government, so there are very few opportunities to get sponsored and receive funding. Bobsled is an expensive sport due to the logistics of transporting 400-pound sleds across the world and transportation expenses. While working with some small sponsorships, Riley is still unable to manage the fees that are required of her for this sport. Riley is looking to get the word out about her mission. She is hoping for donations, sponsorships, or any opportunities to participate in to help fund her season. Riley has created a link tree on her Instagram page, which has links to the various ways you can help support her journey, such as purchasing a challenge coin, getting discounts on apparel that Riley is partnered with, donating on her GoFundMe page, and so much more. Riley has written a children's book called If You Can Dream It, Be It, which will be out on March 4th of this year. But if you can't wait, you can pre-purchase the book on her LinkedIn account as well. You can also follow her journey to the 2026 Winter Olympics on her Instagram, riley.tejcek, and I'll spell that, RILEY.TEJECK, or connect with her on LinkedIn at Riley Tejcek. Thank you for tuning in. You can find our Tactical Treasures podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, as well as Vet TV, American Grit, and our dedicated YouTube channel. We're also proud to share that our JDog Foundation is a Wreaths Across America sponsorship group. For each $17 Veterans Wreath you sponsor, $5 goes directly back to the JDog Foundation, whose mission is to prevent veteran suicide and heal veterans' mental health and PTSD. You can donate right now at wreathsacrossamerica.org/JDog. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again on another podcast real soon. Bye-bye now.